And welcome everybody to another episode of Pulse of Fins Nation. I am your host, Louis Sung. I am joined by Chris Early, otherwise known as Duke. I am joined by Ron Caniff, and Eric Weideke may pop in a little bit later if he has the moment. He hasn't been able to get to the new occupation yet, so unfortunately he still has night shifts to deal with. So we will see if he manages to pop in. If not, then Eric, we will see you next week. We hope to see you soon. Anyway, so Miami Dolphins training camp is officially here. The first day of practice is over and done with. Plenty of Miami Dolphins came to the podium to speak. A lot of them had some things to say about Tua. There were some reports about who went on the PUP list and who did not. We'll get into those players shortly. We'll discuss them. We'll talk about what we think that means, if it means anything at all, or if this is something that we should be concerned about. So we got plenty on the docket for today. And we also got some cell phones going off in the background. Believe me, I may get a call from my own job because I also have after hours work in between my work.
You're getting a call from Greer because you're going to be the one breaking the news during the show.
Yeah, I'm not holding my breath on that at this point, sir. I'm sure Cap for Life somewhere is just itching to say, I told you so. I'm not going to get there yet. We're not there yet, but it's starting to look more and more like I told you so is coming. So,
well, I don't know what's interesting. Well, we'll start the show before we get into it, right? I know you got some other more important things to talk about.
Yes. First and foremost, sponsors. Yes, we do. We got these sponsors. First of all, prizepicks.com. Make sure you go to prizepicks.com. Use that promo code 5. That's FIVE. They will match up to $100 on your deposit when you sign up. They have special Taco Tuesday promos today. They have Flex Friday specials on Fridays, which means you get your money back in promo funds if you end up losing up to $20. So plenty of reasons for you to go to prizepicks.com. Again, the promo code is 5, FIVE. Go to prizepicks.com, deposit your $100, and let PrizePicks give you $100 of their dollars for you to play with and get started winning today. And of course, we also have the newest sponsor to the show. So that's the jerseys305.com. We're going to have a little video for you, which explains exactly how this all works.
Hey, it's Ethan Skolnick for the 5 Reasons Sports Network. We've got a great new sponsor that fits with us perfectly. It's called jerseys305.com. That's jerseys305.com. This is your home for dead stock and vintage jerseys from the Heat, Panthers, Dolphins, Marlins, and the other local teams. Their mission was born from a passion for wearing jerseys of the old styles and the past players. Jerseys 305 aims to make every fan stand out from the crowd with unique pieces that you don't commonly see anymore. Maybe 10, 15, 20 years ago, but not today. And Jerseys 305 was created by the fans, for the fans. They're diehards just like you. In fact, they're probably listening to this episode right now. So check them out, Jerseys 305, their partnership with 5 Reasons Sports, celebrating with a 10% discount on the next purchase using the code 5 at checkout. Unlock your exclusive savings on the entire vintage collection.
And again, that is jerseys305.com. Use that promo code 5. You'll get 10% off your order when you go ahead and buy that from that location. All right. So here we go with the Miami Dolphins training camp. We're going to get into some of the things that were said by certain players. We'll go ahead, and what I'll do is I'll get the Tua stuff out of the way, just make that really quick and easy. From what we understand, Tua is not going to be holding out of practice, unlike his Green Bay counterpart, Jordan Love. They're all, by the way, Jordan Love and Tua Tagovailoa, as of this season, they are both actually represented by the same agency, Athletes First, which are notoriously known for making sure that they're going to maximize their players' money, regardless of whether or not it's going to be easy for the team to swallow it or not. As a matter of fact, I would think it's not really a stretch to say that they are, considering how many quarterbacks are currently negotiating terms, they're probably playing their contracts off of each other. So think about it this way, and this is truly diabolical if this is what's happening, and I probably think that it is. Imagine that you're Jordan Love and you're negotiating terms for a contract. Then Athletes First comes over and says, hey, Tua just got offered this much. Well, then Jordan Love wants to up the ante. Well, I want this much. And then that same agency goes to Tua's people and say, hey, Jordan Love just got offered this much. Well, Tua says, now I want this much. So it just continues to go up and up and up until somebody finally says enough's enough. So we'll see what happens there. I think that that's a scary prospect because it feels like that we're playing the waiting game here. And at this point, I feel like what's considered fair is going up more and more as time goes on. For what it's worth, Raheem Mostert has made it a point to say that Tua absolutely deserves to get paid whatever it is that he gets paid. There is nobody on the team that is saying that he hasn't earned all the money. He's saying that he's a great leader. He's been a phenomenal player this whole time. The team needs Tua if they are actually going to go anywhere in 2024 and beyond. For what it's worth, again, Tyreek even came out and said that Tua is actually here. He's supposedly in great spirits. That's super. I'm appreciative of him for doing that. So it doesn't look like Tua is planning on just disappearing from practice. Now, here's the thing, though. How long do you figure we can get away with not actually doing this signing? Because, again, like I said, it feels like the longer we drag this out, the worse it's going to get for Miami. And I'm struggling to figure out why they're not going to pull the trigger. It's definitely not because they don't think that he's the guy or that he feels like they feel like that he's not worth it. Because every report that we've heard, all these reports from Adam Schefter, Jeff Darlington, Jeremy Fowler, all these guys, they're all saying the same thing, that Miami says that Tua is their guy, that Tua is the one that they want to keep for a long term and a long time in Miami. They want him to be the franchise quarterback. But their actions are not coinciding with those reports. But we haven't heard a single report refuting that Miami's not sure if Tua is the guy. Not a single report. Not even from the most advanced Tua haters out there. We haven't even heard from Cowherd or Pro Football Talk that Miami feels that Tua is not the guy. Even they have said, no, Tua is their guy. So what's the holdup? just give him what he wants and move on. I don't understand it.
Chris, you go first.
I don't know what the holdup is. I would really like to know how these negotiations go on. I would really like to see how this is, because we as fans, I think we look at it like, Greer and Shore and whoever else is in on this contract is in a room somewhere punching numbers, and then they send this thing to Tua, and then Tua replies back, and his agent replies back, and then they go crunch some more numbers, and it's like this ongoing thing, and it's not really like that. No. I would just be fascinated to see how it really works. One thing I will say about what the players are going to say, you can really take that with a grain of salt. They're not going to come out and say, yeah, this guy sucks, we don't need to sign him. But at the same time, they could go about it differently. They could say, well, we want players to do and players are always going to be on the side of players, right? Because they're going to want Tua to get all of what Tua can get just because he's a player. He's on their side. But at the same time, they could say it differently if they didn't believe it. And so I believe that they believe Tua's the guy, which is a good sign.
They don't have the same glowing reviews back in the day when Ryan Tannehill was the quarterback.
Well, you could just say it's like, well, I'll leave that up to the agents. That's not for me to discuss. I'm just here to worry about what I can do and what I can work on. That would be your response for, like, I don't care if the guy gets paid or not. If you really want the guy to get paid, you can do like Jalen Ramsey did when he was playing golf with Tua and just say, pay Tua. So it's going to get done. I think if it's not done this week, it will probably toward the end of preseason. I think the Dolphins will make kind of a final offer that this is the best that we're going to offer. And if Tua doesn't take it, then it's going to go throughout the season. So, because the Dolphins still have the franchise tag that they can play with. That's not the route that I would go, but they can do it. And the reason I wouldn't want to do it is because, if Tua goes out and balls out this year, leads the league in categories, wins a few playoff games, or hopefully a Super Bowl. The Dolphins just cost themselves a lot of money. Now,
a lot of money.
If that's the case, look, if Tua goes out there and wins a Super Bowl and plays like an MVP level, I don't care. Pay him whatever you want, right? That's the first Super Bowl since before I was born. So, and Ron, it's probably before you were born, right?
Yeah, definitely. Just a few years, but yes.
I don't know. Yeah, what was it? The last?
I was born in 75. Last one was 73. So a couple years.
So yeah, so we just barely missed it. So yeah, pay him whatever. You pay him $80 million a year. I don't care. You win a Super Bowl, you get that. But it's going to happen. and I'm reading the comments, and he's never had to do a big QB contract. That's true, but there's ways to structure this, and I think the holdup, and I think Chad mentioned this on a show a few weeks ago. I think it's the guaranteed money. I think there's just Tua wants more guaranteed money than what the Dolphins are offering. So whenever the funny money number comes out, Tua gets a 5-year, blah 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 contract. It's worth X amount of dollars per year. Nobody, that might look good and sound good, but it's that guaranteed money is what he's going to want. And I think that's what's holding it up. The Dolphins are just coming in under that. What he's wanting. I don't know what that number is, but that's my guess.
First of all, I think, and this isn't my original thought, but CK from 3 yards per carry mentioned that if he's willing to be on the practice field in practice, maybe they're not super far away, right? If they were $40 million guaranteed money away, probably he's not doing that. Then it comes to the question of, well, how long does this go? Well, I imagine he wouldn't play any preseason games, but he probably wouldn't play the first preseason game anyway. We're past the point of having to use preseason games to get reps for our good guys on offense, which is, it's a great feeling. Hadn't had that feeling in a really long time. Last year, maybe I don't know, maybe a little bit more, but this year we really are that team. We really are those guys on offense. Best offense in the league or close to it. As far as when it gets done, though, man, it's hard to know because we, like Chris said, we just don't know where they are exactly. However, I'm going to agree with Chris where he said we think it's like, some guy and, Greer has his, his tax man hat on, right? The tax man visor, and he's sitting there with his thing trying to figure it out. And there's Tua and his agent sitting there at the other side of the desk, and they're like, they're all trying to figure it out. And if you've been watching Hard Knocks with I almost said the Knicks, with the Giants, you see it's like almost a little bit more like write a number on a napkin. Here's kind of not slide a napkin up to you, but here's kind of like what I'm thinking. This is what I'm going to offer. Then you tell a guy and it's like, okay, why don't you just go send him that? Then they go send him that. And the agent tells Tua, hey, this is their latest offer, blah, blah, blah. Because I'm sure even though the agent doesn't want him to take A, B, or C, he brings all offers to Tua, right? But I kind of agree with you a little bit, Lewis, on the fact that you have the same agent kind of negotiating a lot of these deals, like the Jordan Love deal too. It's almost like purchasing a house where the selling agent and the buyer's agent is the same person. Like, who are they really representing there? Clearly, this agency wants to they want to break the record every single time they sign a contract. If Tua goes second, then he's going to get more than Love. If Love goes second, he's going to get more than Tua, and so on and so forth. But it's interesting that, you think about it, it's the same agents, right? So they're probably getting a lot of the same advice, even though it's different situations. Love is saying he's going to sit and not practice. I assume he came to camp or is coming to camp. I don't know the Green Bay schedule, but it's what they call is holding in. Oh, he didn't even show up. Oh, okay. Well, I don't know, but if maybe somebody wants to check that out and even put a comment in there. And Tua's coming in. Now that could be just different personalities, different goals, different drive, or it could be the Packers and Love are really far away and Dolphins and Tua aren't. I have a feeling they're not super far away, and we're really not going to be talking about this much longer. I really do believe that, but I don't know for sure. I just don't think Tua would even be practicing if they were really far away. I just think he would be holding in. He'd have shown up. He'd participate in all the meetings and do everything he needed to do, but he probably wasn't going to throw one ball during practice if they were really far away. So they're probably close. And that's why I keep saying, tomorrow, Friday, Tuesday night, Wednesday night, something like that. I just feel like it's going to be sometime this week. Of course, I could be wrong, but kind of feel like it will be.
Yeah. And to your point about the sitting there in the room, we look at it as fans like, what else do they have to do but work on this contract, right? Like they are have nothing else to do but sit there and just crunch these numbers. But there's a lot of stuff that goes in behind it. And this is probably like, we'll make an offer, and then I'll say, we'll get in touch. We'll talk to you again on Friday. You know, we as fans are like, what do you mean Friday? Talk to him like 30 minutes from now. Let him read it and then talk to him. We want it, you know, we want everything yesterday. And that's just not how it works. So, but to your point also, Ron, Jordan Love and Tua are coming this slightly different, but they're a little bit different than other quarterbacks, right? So, you know, you had Jalen Hurts, who got paid, and he went to a Super Bowl. You got Joe Burrow, who got paid and went to a Super Bowl. You had Justin Herbert, who has been, you know, had his first couple of years where he was just dynamite, had some issues with the team as far as coaching and personnel, and things just weren't in his favor. But he was there. I don't think he really has missed any time until last year. Well, you have Jordan Love, who played great for half a season, but has only started one full season. You've got Tua, who's only played one full season. So you've got this short body of work, and now you're trying to negotiate being the highest paid guy on the short body of work. So I don't know if that's what's holding it up. If they're like, look, you know, we want to see more. Now, unfortunately for the Packers, I don't believe they exercised the 5th-year option, or if they did some kind of.
No, they did, or he wouldn't even be under contract.
They
were drafted the same year.
They contract for him though. It was like a 1-year deal.
Oh, did
I've seen a thing. There's a video that pops up on let's see, on the Fin side, and it's, I don't know who it is, it's NFL Network or some other thing. But Tua is the only one of the top 5 guys in that draft that are still on a rookie contract.
Oh,
So
okay. I didn't even realize that they did that with Jordan Love. So I wonder what Jordan Love's even making this year. Probably not even what Tua's making.
It was some kind of deal, just basically get him through last year, and then of course he went out and he played well, and then so now they're negotiating off that. So that's the kind of the problem with those guys is that I think if Tua had played all of 2022, I don't think we're in this at this point. I think they would have. Either he's not our guy, which I don't think would happen, or they're like, we're going to pay him whatever because we've got 2 years of work. It was just the fact that he missed 4 or 5 games and had those concussions, and though they're not likely to happen again, according to what they say, it's just you've got 1 full season of work, and like, all right, we're going to go out and give you all this money, and then what happens if he misses time again? And and it happened throughout college as well. So
I mean, they paid Burrow, and he had already missed a big chunk of time. Now he's missed again.
And he's played fewer games than Tua, believe it or not.
Yeah,
so,
he actually has. I mean, I understand that it's been more productive, more playoff wins, and he got to a Super Bowl. I completely understand why they paid him. I'm just pointing that out.
And so, and I'm reading the questions. I don't think the one about Greer and Shore are late to the pay increase trend in football. I don't think they're late to it. I think they value different things. And this is one that I will stand behind Chris Greer on. Look, you look at every of the top defensive tackle contracts, and we all are talking about Christian Wilkins and what a good player he is. And he's a very good player. But look at all of the contracts that are below him in terms of overall numbers. You can look at any particular metric of the contract. His is second only to Chris Jones, who is far and away the best interior defensive lineman in the game. But he has 20.5 sacks, which is a half sack more than Sealer. He's got fewer sacks than Jeffrey Simmons, than Quinnen Williams, than Dexter Lawrence, than Justin Matabuki. All these guys have more sacks in fewer games than Christian Wilkins. And I was looking at that today. It's just that if Christian Wilkins had come out and for like 3 seasons had double-digit sacks, I understand that contract. But for that particular position, and to me, defensive tackle and interior offensive line, or particularly guard, are just low-value positions. It's not that you don't want to have good players there. It's just it's not something I think you want to overly invest in unless you're getting a guy that's kind of the top of the line, right? So if Chris Jones is on the market and that's the guy you get,
then you pay.
And I kind of feel the same way about, even though I think wide receiver has become more of a premium position. Look, I don't mind paying Tyreek Hill. That guy is best wide receiver in the league. I don't mind paying Jalen Waddle. I mean, Jalen Waddle's a number one receiver on most teams in the league.
He's a number one receiver on most teams, and we're paying him like really, really good or wide receiver 2 money or low end wide receiver 1 money. We got a deal there.
And we're paying Bradley Chubb. Again, that's a defensive end or rush linebacker. He's an edge rusher. Those are premium positions. We're paying Teron Armstead. Greer's just not putting a lot of value into certain positions. And I think we saw that in this draft. We could have drafted interior defensive lineman or offensive lineman at 21, and they took an edge rusher. Pick 55 rolls around. There was a number of interior defensive linemen, interior offensive linemen they could have taken. They took a tackle. This is tackle 4. We're talking about our 4th offensive tackle. Guy probably won't play much this year at all. And that's what they value. So I don't think he's behind the curve. I think he's like I'm going to pay these positions a certain amount, and I'm not going over that because I just don't have the value in that position for what it's worth. And look, I like Robert Hunt, good player. He's not a $20 million a year guard.
No, he's absolutely. I really did like Hunt, but I agree that's the most overpaid of the free agents that we.
Yeah, and then Carolina, you look at them. They paid Derek Brown as well, who they drafted him in 2021. They paid for Damian Lewis, another guard. So they have 3 interior linemen, 1 defensive and 2 offensive interior linemen. And they're paying over the total contract nearly $250 million, billion with a B, to those 3 guys.
Probably not how you build a franchise. However, they're at a point they're just at a different point in their franchise and rebuild than we are. But I kind of want to bring it back to one. Go ahead, Chris. And I wanted to bring it back to one other point about Tua's contract.
I'm just saying, I don't think Rear values those positions. So he's not going to pay them.
No, I agree.
The quarterback's different. That's a different thing altogether. But those 2, I get it.
I do want to point out one thing about Tua's contract and the people helping him negotiate it. I don't know anything about the agency yet. Before, I didn't even know if they even did a bunch of big deals, and it turned out I just found out today that they've been doing a ton of the big deals out there, like a lot of them. We think that just getting more money is what's best for the player, and I don't know that only getting more money is what's best for the player. Where you end up, especially for a guy like Tua, and who you play with, and where you play, and the system you're in, as we saw, was absolutely critical to his success. Number 1, being happy where you live, also a big thing. And I just don't know sometimes if these guys really do have the player's best interest in mind, besides I'm just going to get you the most money, because I don't know if that's always the most money. So where did Wilkins end up? In Chicago, right?
He went up at he's
Las Vegas.
Formerly
he went to the Raiders. Yeah.
Yeah.
He went to the Raiders, right? So, I mean, is he really going to be happier there than he was in Miami for the difference that he got? Does Nevada have a state income tax or not?
No.
I'm not even sure. Okay, they don't. So that broke even. That's good. That's important. That's important. But is he really going to be happier in that team?
They say that money can't buy happiness. It can sure rent it, though.
Yeah, but I mean, I just don't know. Sometimes I feel like I say that to say this. If Drew Rosenhaus, and I'm not the first one to point this out, it's probably been pointed out 10,000 times on Twitter in the last week. If Drew Rosenhaus is Tua's agent, this shit is done, man. It's done. Like we're because I just feel like, I don't know. I just feel like Drew Rosenhaus has a way to negotiate with teams, and he understands the teams as well as the players, and gets that there's maybe a tad bit more than just, can I make another $5-10 million? Now for Wilkins, I have a feeling that was extremely important to him, because we heard Mike McDaniel say in Hard Knocks, after Wilkins had bought all those Krispy Kremes for the team, about how damn cheap he is. So probably he's a guy who really respects the dollar and absolutely wanted to get, so he had the right agent for him. He absolutely did, because he probably was a guy. I don't know if he's better off, but for him, if he just wanted the most money, then he's better off. Tua, for me, I just don't think that just making quote unquote the most money is the most important thing for him. He's already made a lot of money. He's going to make a ton of money either way. But man, if he played this out and it ended up somewhere else and didn't work, it could cost him a lot of money too. Like, it's just, and it costs them more than money, because these players don't just play for money. They play to achieve something. They have goals. They want to win. They want to win Super Bowls. Most of them do. Just things to consider that I feel like maybe Rosenhaus and some other agents kind of get that. And the teams and the players and everything is kind of a symbiosis there of everybody kind of understanding that. And I just wonder, like, if we're just out there trying to get to a quote unquote the biggest contract, is that really in the best interest of Tua? And I know I'm biased because I'm a Dolphins fan and I want my quarterback on the team signed, and let's roll and let's get this behind us. So I understand I'm not coming from an independent position here, but I just wonder sometimes if for Tua, maybe not getting every single penny and being absolutely the highest paid quarterback for 5 days until Dak or Love gets more is absolutely in your best interest versus maybe somewhere. I just feel like Greer has probably offered some sort of maybe concession met in the middle and given more than he wants, and that they're still saying no. Even though it's close, he's still saying no. I want that $1. I want that extra $5 because I want it. And I just don't know if that's what's in his best interest.
I don't think they're haggling over, like a few $1 million. So we're not talking about like, well, what's his name? It just signed Trevor Lawrence. He's getting $55 million a year on average. We want 56. Like, if that was all that was to it, they do that. They don't care. They can manipulate those contracts. I think the deal is, and I see a comment in the chat there. It's about the guaranteed money, because look at Tyreek Hill's contract. He does not have any guaranteed money left after this year, which means the Dolphins can cut him and he gets nothing.
That's why he wants a new contract.
That's why he wants a new contract. It's not having anything to do with like the cap space and all that other stuff.
No,
he is not getting anything guaranteed after this year. Now the Dolphins could maneuver that money around and say, well, we'll do some stuff and rework the contract to where he's getting cash now.
Like JG Wentworth.
That's just what went through my head. So,
when you said cash now, I mean, I had to say JG Wentworth.
So I think that's the deal. I think that's the holdup for Tua. I want 4 years of guaranteed money, and the Dolphins are saying we'll give you 3 years of guaranteed money, and the actual dollar amount is less important, unless the Dolphins are just underselling it, which I don't think they are. So I don't think it's like Tua's like, no, I want 42.7 million. You're only offering 42.6 or something. It's Dolphins are we'll give you a 5-year deal. But I don't think that
if this agency and this agent or these agents are so determined to always sign the guy to the next highest deal, it could be that close. They're just being Tua's team is just being ridiculous about it.
I don't think the Dolphins would care though. I don't think it's necessarily a numbers thing for them.
But $3 million. Who did we sign for $3 million that is supposedly going to be so important on the PUP list to our offense this year?
Yeah. So
so that could be the difference between next year getting that, the next, Odell Beckham Jr. and not getting him, because you had to be the highest paid quarterback because your agent wants to make sure he signs everybody.
The cap space can be manipulated though. You can work around that, and you just had the benefit of getting some cap space back and future cap space back with Shaq Barrett retiring, because now his void years come off the deal. That's no longer money on the books for the future.
But Duke, hold on, because that money that you're talking about with Shaq Barrett just now has just been reallocated to Emmanuel Ogba, who's now back.
Do we know that he got all of that though?
He got $5 million. I don't know what
to $5 million.
Up to $5 million. I have no idea.
His guarantees aren't what Shaq got, anyways.
Also, by the way, welcome Eric Weideke to the show.
Much appreciated. Thanks.
I still think it's a. Sorry, Eric, to interrupt. I'm just saying. I think it's a deal where the Dolphins want a shorter guaranteed term than what Tua wants, and the money's off there. If I think the final concession for them would have to be Tua. They're going to have to give him maybe say, well, we'll offer more money over shorter term, or we're going to offer more years, but we're not going to go up on the funds. And I think that's where it's going to have to come to.
The other thing that has to be kept in mind here, guys, and I feel like this is the part that we're just glossing over because we talked about Tua, we talked about the Dolphins. Ron touched on it briefly. The agents themselves, they want that big contract too, not just because it increases their reputation. It's because they get paid. They get paid for how big the contracts are that their people
and
sign.
every time they sign a guy to the number one contract, that's another guy that comes down.
That's
Caleb
another
Williams
big
is like,
payday
hey,
coming down the
I
line.
want you.
Well, I mean, the other thing here, though, if you're Tua, is can we all agree that Tua's probably been one of the 5 most disrespected starting quarterbacks in the NFL over the last few years?
He's been the number one most disrespected
right,
quarterback.
and
in the
so
NFL.
and
Like,
so
okay,
and so for him,
name me one more. Name me
and
one
so
more.
for and so exactly, but so for him, it would just be another in a long line, and maybe I'm off base with this. I think he feels like it would be another in a long line of just almost slaps in the face that he has to be the guy to take the step back on the quarterback market.
It's a bit,
he has to be the guy to take the step backwards. Not Lawrence, not Goff, not Jordan Love, that it's got to be Tua, because it's just always Tua that's not getting the credit that other guys are getting.
That could
and
be,
by the way,
that could be
Jordan
true,
Love,
Eric. It could be true.
Jordan Love, of all the quarterbacks who are getting paid right now, first of all, the fact that we're even talking about Tua and Jordan Love in the same thing. Jordan Love, Tua had to prove it all this season, and he had to prove it for whatever half of the season before. But he was playing as a top MVP level quarterback for that stretch of time. And yes, he had some hiccups at the end of the season.
Even before he got that concussion in the Green Bay game, that first half of anybody, go back and watch the tape, whatever. Just go back and watch the first half of the game. Tua was playing like something had clicked in that man. Like he had gotten something figured out and dialed in. And then he got that concussion we didn't know about. And clearly, like, it all went off the rails. Like he just wasn't himself. You could see that. But we just didn't know until after. We're like, oh, that makes so much sense. Like he was really dialing it in. I like what Eric's saying, but I'm going to flip it. Is why do I have to be the one disrespected? Or no, hey, remember when you told me on the field that during practice that you should have gone ahead and drafted Herbert? Well, look what I just got paid, and your ass is a defensive coordinator over in Minnesota. and I'm talking about Brian Flores. It's like, it's a little part of you just want to stick it to that man for how much because of all the people and all the media and Sims and Cowherd and half the Dolphins fans, and sometimes more than half, there's been periods of time that have disrespected him. I don't know if anybody disrespected him more than Brian Flores. And that's just the honest truth. So I think it might be kind of both there, Eric, but you make a great point. He's been disrespected so much. Why does he have to be the one to take less when no one else will? I agree with when you put it like that. I'm like, if you're Greer, you're going to have to give him his money. Let's just move on. I just want the Dolphins to give him his money. Like, we're talking this back and forth about his agents and this and that. I personally just want Greer to go right now, sit him down, give him the money he wants, and let's move on. Because for me, I believe he deserves it and he has earned it.
Okay, so I'm gonna go back to this. Is something I watched from Omar. He mentioned this. Is Tua, to go to your point, Eric? Does the respect for Tua come from guaranteed money, or does it come from over the annual average value? So this Tua, and this is the question he asked, and I don't know the answer. Does he want the $56 million a year to be the quote unquote highest paid, or does he want a higher guaranteed money part? So like the overall number wouldn't necessarily matter, but if he's getting, say, 140 something guaranteed, that's more than Herbert, more than Burrow, more than those guys. Is that more important than that average annual value? Omar, and what I saw from him, he seems to think that it was a bad idea for Tua to go after the higher annual average value and go for a higher guaranteed money. That would be my take.
Omar's been very consistent about the guaranteed money is the only money that ever matters, because that's the only money.
I agree. I mean, that's the money he's definitely going to get. And if that were me, I'd be like, you know what? I don't care that I'm making more than them on an average annual value. Give me more guaranteed money. And I'll be fine with that. But I don't know if that's where Tua is or not. So I don't know. That's That's your point on respect there. Which side
And
is in favor?
that's the thing is that's something that we can only guess at. I would assume, given his injury history, given how close he was to medical retirement post 2022, it would be the guaranteed dollars. Especially when you consider, Trevor Lawrence's deal might not really come out to an average annual value more than Goff, but he did take that next step in terms of the guaranteed money. So that's really, I think, what Tua's looking at is the guaranteed dollars. But again, that's something we can only really guess at this point in the negotiations. I don't want it to get to a point where, and I'll give Tua at least credit for being the good soldier to this point. From what it seems like, all indications are going to be that he's going to show up at camp and that he's going to be Tua. He's going to be the same guy. But ultimately, it's just one of those things where just get past it already. You're going to have to rip the Band-Aid off. Anytime, like any contract that Tua gets signed to is going to be prohibitive to some point. That's just the nature of paying a quarterback in the National Football League today. The sooner you get it done,
wanted a good one. You finally wanted a good one. You've worked so hard. You sat through 20 years of some of the worst quarterback play in the history of this league for that period of time. You finally got a good one, and now you don't want to pay him? Pay him. Let's get it done. I mean, that's just part of me. And I like Greer so much. I really do. I think he's crushed it, and I think he'll get this done too. But I don't think he's going to save much. I think he's going to end up having drug this whole thing out, and they're going to end up paying him anyway. That's why I say just do it.
So we're just going to go ahead and switch gears here because we've got some other players to talk about here because we can't talk about Tua every single
I'm going to talk about the players that are here. Oh, sorry. I was just giving like a Joe Philbin generic head coach answer about a player who's holding.
Well, that's just it, though. We're about to talk about another player that technically isn't here. You brought him up earlier, Ron. Odell Beckham Jr. He's starting training camp on the PUP list.
He's supposed to be minor.
Which is funny because Ian Berger, who is a good friend of ours, he also is on Dolphins Talk. He had an interview with Odell Beckham while he was at his charity camp. And Odell Beckham seemed to be expressing that he's excited for the season. All the players, Jalen Waddle, Tyreek Hill, they're excited to be working with him. And he's on the PUP list. He's not even practicing. Now, what I'm wanting to know is, because we haven't heard anything about injuries, we haven't seen any indication that he's injured. Is this a conditioning thing? Like, is Odell Beckham too fat to start the season?
He ran the 110 too slow? I don't know, man. No clue. I don't have even the foggiest. Aren't we supposed to know about injury tomorrow or something? Or do we not get to know? I forget.
The tweet from Tom Pelissero said that it was a planned thing. So
he planned to be fat? No, I'm just kidding.
Well, no, he planned to be on there to recover. So whatever it was that they do that. So.
I totally planned to be fat too, guys. Just so you know.
Well, and look though, I mean, you've already had two guys that were placed on the two of the lists last week, and they're already off the list now. So Ahmed's off the list, and safety Mark Perry's off the list. So the only one that's pretty much done is Tosh Washington. He was moved to the reserve PUP list, which means he's out. So
he was the second Washington drafted, correct?
Yeah, he was
the seventh rounder.
He's
Caleb Williams' target.
Oh, that's
he was done. He was done. He's done until at least 4 weeks. This is probably a red shirt year for him. So that's it. But the other guys are on the active PUP, so they can be called up at any time. So I wouldn't put too much stock in this. It's just preliminary. The one that was kind of surprising today was David Long. I don't know what that was, and I believe he was at all of the OTAs and stuff.
Yeah,
so.
Could be anything. Could just be hey, I was working out a couple days ago. My hamstring was like a little tighter. That could be anything, man.
I mean, we know how Mike McDaniel likes to play these things. He didn't do the practice days for Raheem Mostert at the beginning of the week. He kept Teron Armstead wrapped up in bubble wrap. The Odell thing, again, for a guy with his injury history, it smells like maintenance to me, honestly. Just making sure that he doesn't hurt himself in the first week of camp, and I guess they just want to bring him along slowly. Because, and that's the thing, especially with guys that are over, I think, the age of 29 on this team specifically. They did a lot of maintenance with Xavier Howard last year as well. I think that's just what this is. They're just trying to slow play it and be cautious with guys that are a little bit up there in years.
Now we did that all last year a lot. We were almost like NBA style sometimes with some of these players, and it really didn't pay off. Now, injuries are unforeseen. We've had a bad streak of luck 2 years in a row, the most injured team in the league. Got to think that's going to end, but I'm just saying doing that didn't necessarily seem to help, but maybe it'd have been worse if they hadn't. I don't know.
That particular Spoelstraism did not seem to actually help out that much.
The NFL is not the NBA. It is a completely different, or Major League Baseball. You get 17 games. You need all hands on deck for every minute of those 17 games that you can get them.
And as far as I'm aware, I have not heard any. We heard from the players today. There is no indication that Odell Beckham is not going to be playing. It's not like, we can't. There's no words of we can't wait to play with him or anything along those lines. It's more like just we know he's going to be coming. We're looking forward to when he gets on the practice field, and then he's going to open.
Could be a couple days. I mean, it could be anything.
But if it's only going to be a couple of days, then my real question at that point is, what is even the point of putting him on the PUP list? Is it just that, who are you going? Think about this. Who are you going to sign? Who are you going to sign as a placeholder?
Well, it's not about that. It's all to do with the CBA. And when a guy says, "Hey, I've got this going on," you now have particular protocol. You have to deal and handle this player in a certain way with certain protocols. And you putting him on the PUP to kick in those protocols as to why this player can do A, B, C, can't do D, E, F. It's more that than anything. It's not to signal something to the team or signal something to the player or signal something to the media and to the fans. It is simply just a language kind of rules you got to follow, protocol you go to. Every single designation of all these players, yes, it gives us information, but more than anything, it kicks in these kind of like little protocols and rules, etc., as to what you can and can't do with those players. It's just more logistical than anything.
And you only get one shot at the PUP list. So if you're going to do it now. I mean, that's it. You can't do it if he goes out there and runs one route and he comes up a little gimpy. You can't say, "Well, we'll put him on the PUP list." That's too late. Then he's either got to sit out the rest of the off season and not do anything, or you have to put him on IR, and then you have to wait until he can come back from that. So, so the PUP list is just a way to basically put players on the shelf until you're ready to get them off the shelf, pretty much.
Now, let's say you didn't put him on the PUP list, Lewis, and tomorrow practice starts, and everybody's out there, even Tua, not even signed his extension yet, and Odell Beckham Jr. is just sitting there on the sideline and never gets to play, and everybody's, what's going on, man? What happened? See? So now you just know, he's on the PUP list. We just don't know why he's on the PUP list or how long he'll be there, but at least now you know.
So the same question is still the same. What's going on? Why is he on the PUP list? Is he fat? Is he hurt? Is he what? What's going on there?
If Barry says this, if Barry Jackson says it's minor, then it's minor.
That's right. I want to go back to a point Ron mentioned
I love
earlier.
Barry, but he's not the oracle of Miami sports. Okay,
I understand that, but by the way, Lewis, I think you forgot you were on a video podcast for a moment because your eyes about rolled out of the back of your head when I said that. I think you thought this was audio only.
I'm gonna go to something that Ron said earlier regarding the preseason, and this is how I feel about pretty much everybody. There's about 20 to 25 names of players I don't think we need to see at all in the preseason. I'm not going to list all of them. I'm just saying there's about 25 names. I don't care if they play. Raheem Mostert, Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, Tua, Teron Armstead. Throw Kendall Lamb on that list. I don't care. These guys don't need to play. Don't get them hurt. Just make it to week one. They're good to go.
Did you say Jalen Ramsey?
Jalen Ramsey, all of them.
Yeah.
Jalen Waddle, Jalen Ramsey, all the Jalens.
Jalen Phillips.
They can sit on the bench. They don't need to play. Now, the only reason I would say put Jalen Phillips out there is if he wants to go out there just to get some game experience because I understand that injury mentality is like
tested a little mentally.
I can go out there and run sprints and do all that stuff he's been doing. When the game's out there and the snap there's that mental block.
I've heard players talk about where sometimes it's like the first snap or two, they're nervous. And then all of a sudden they kind of put it away and forget about it. Or it's for quarterbacks, sometimes it's the first big hit if you were knocked out with a hit, or first time you're tackled around your legs, or the first time for Jalen Phillips, it's going to be the first time he fires off to the backfield.
And that's how it was.
And it takes a few snaps, and then all of a sudden, holy crap, they're just playing football and they don't think about it. And if you keep playing scared for a long period of time, it can affect you.
So if Jalen Phillips comes off the PUP list, throw him out there for like 3 plays to get those jitters out and then take him out. But that's your point about, and that happened with Tua. He came in, it was the Jets game. He played 2 snaps, no contact. And then the very next game was the Rams, and the first hit was Aaron Donald, and he fumbled the ball. But he got laid out pretty hard too. He landed on his back and he got up, and it was smooth sailing pretty much after that. So, just sit those guys. We don't need to play them. I don't need to know. I know what Teron Armstead can do. I know what Kendall Lamb can do. I know what the receivers can do. I don't need to see any of them. I do need to see guys like Eric Ezukama, Malik Washington, River Craycraft, Cam Smith, some of these other guys that are trying to earn a spot or make a name.
Most of the offensive line, besides maybe the tackles.
I don't need to see Aaron Brewer. Don't get him out there. I don't need to see Austin Jackson either. Just let all the backups play, because I would rather
it's like G League football.
Yeah, I would rather look like crap in the preseason and go into week 1 with a healthy offensive line than watch whoever's supposed to be our starting left guard go out there, get crushed get pinned under, and somebody roll up on his leg, and now we're starting Lester Cotton again for week 1. Just don't do it. I don't care. I don't care who wins in the preseason. I'm just there for the fun of it. Just no injuries. That's all I care about. No injuries.
Gotcha.
I just kind of feel like at some point you have to be willing, though, to at least let that dress rehearsal thing. I believe that that's something that you have to. I would rather they work the kinks out in a preseason game where the other team is just as interested in preserving their starters as Miami is. They are not going to go in there looking for heads to roll. Like, the other team is also being like, okay, we're going to
everybody under them that is looking for heads to roll.
Okay, that's fine. But if the starters are playing the starters and you yank them at the same time, then what difference does it make? So, there's always the chance of a freak accident that somebody trips on a hole in the turf and then they tear up their ACL or whatever. That's something that can happen in the regular season too. So I personally feel like, if only just to be able to make sure that, hey, let's make sure we got everything, all our kinks worked out, especially with a new defense, especially on the defensive side of the ball. Maybe on offense, you could get away with it because on offense, it's the same scheme, the same everything. Everything's exactly the same.
I do disagree about Aaron Brewer, though. I think playing center, especially in this offense, kind of knowing the protections that you're going to want to have and just knowing the ins and outs of the offense itself. And obviously, there's things that the calls. Obviously, there are things that you can work out in practice there, but that is something that you might want to see at least a little bit of live fire before you go straight into the regular season at that position, making sure that you have the snaps sorted out, things like that. So that would be maybe the only reason why I'd want to see an Aaron Brewer along the offensive line. But I just had to get in there about Brewer as maybe one of the other offensive linemen I'd want to see.
I just remember, I don't remember what year it was. Maybe it's 2011, 2012. No, it wasn't 2012. It was 2011, I believe. Because that was Sperano was still here. And it was the 4th game of the preseason.
Right?
4th game of the preseason, yeah. And it was the 4th game late in the 2nd quarter. And Jake Long was still in the game and got injured in the preseason, and he was never the same the rest of that season. Wasn't the same in 2012, and it was never the same the rest of his career. And I still remember that. Haunts me to this day.
Yeah, haunts you.
Keep him out. Don't care. Work that stuff out against the Jaguars. They're not that good.
I mean, that's the other thing about this is, we have to consider this is standard practice around the NFL now. So it's not like, the Jaguars aren't going to be playing their starters all 4 quarters every preseason game either. For the most part, these teams go into week 1 equally rusty, if anything.
I mean, I get it, but at that point, the game counts. And any given Sunday, Trevor Lawrence may take on the true power of money and suddenly become a superstar quarterback overnight because now he feels vindicated in that he's suddenly a great player. So I don't know, man. I don't like treating things like, oh, you know what, we'll just coast through the off season and then we'll actually get serious when the time comes. You know what? That is something that I'll say where NBA and NFL can sometimes end up being similar. Everybody, all in Miami Heat world, people were getting sick and tired of Jimmy Butler.
G League champions, baby. G League.
Good for Miami.
Okay,
I mean that sincerely.
Get him on a 2-way contract. Okay, back to the film.
I mean it sincerely. Congratulations to the Miami Heat G League for winning that championship. But either way, my point being is that we treat these players like they're China dolls. This is football. It's violent. It's going to happen. You're going to get hurt one way or another. With that being said, people were sick and tired of Jimmy Butler acting like the regular season didn't matter. Oh, it doesn't matter. I'll start playing well when the playoffs come because I already know we're going to make the playoffs. Playoff Jimmy. It's like, there's no big deal. I'll just sit out when I feel like it. I tweaked my ankle today. I don't really feel like it. Oh, I got a little hamstring thing going on. Yeah, I don't really feel like it. That whole mentality is what, in many ways, it just makes it feel like the Heat in some ways were an unserious team. It's like, we don't care. Like, every game matters. Every win in the win column matters. And so in order to best prepare yourself for that situation, I'll put it to you this way. Do you think if this were back in the Don Shula days that we would be saying, just sit all our starters? No, everybody practices twice a week, twice a day. And everybody's going to get their cans kicked all across the field equally. Nobody is off limits. And so now here we are.
We've also learned things about the health of players. Injuries back then, a lot of times during that time, an injury was like, that was it for you. Because these guys were so beyond beat to hell all the time. And part of the reason why injuries aren't as bad, I would say, and as long lasting in the NFL, as we've learned a lot medically. Yeah, but we don't beat the absolute crap out of the players either as much as we used to. I just think there's a benefit. I understand they were a tougher breed back then in the two-a-days and all that and play every snap of preseason, but I don't know. There's something to be said for a modern take to it as well and the health of the players. And
a modern take, yes, but not a like for certain players, fine. Teron Armstead's going to get hurt and you need him. I get it. I understand that. But you can't do that with everybody. You need to make sure that you're some level of prepared for when the regular season starts. You don't want to be the team, especially with a team that requires so much precision and timing as the one that the Miami Dolphins have put together. You don't want to be the team that's rusty for however many weeks it takes to get everything settled in. You don't, because your starters, the ones that are going to be playing most of the snaps the entire way, they haven't been practicing all this time. They're trying to get the kinks out in a game that counts against the Jacksonville Jaguars, and a gimme like the Jaguars, which we're all assuming is a gimme, can quickly become less so if your team still doesn't know what they're doing. And so it's been a long time. It's been several months. They did OTAs. Yes. They did their mini camp. Yes. And to some extent, they're doing their training camp. But you have to be, when the bullets are live, you have to be able to say, okay, we've got it down. We know what we're doing. If you want to yank them after one quarter of preseason, fine, knock yourself out. But
hey, remember they have 3 joint practices this time with every single team.
Even
we have to take that into effect as well. Take that into account.
That
was my counter. What you're
well, but it's not practicing against your exactly.
Camp.
I mean, how much more seriously do you think these teams are taking
your own team and doing things?
Duke and Eric have like a delay going because they're talking.
Yeah, I know. I realized it. Like, right? Yeah, I just realized
they can't hear each other.
Yeah. How much more seriously do you really think these teams are taking preseason games versus the joint practices? I would almost argue teams are probably taking the joint practices more seriously. Now, whether you want to say that that's a problem or not, I don't personally, because I think that those reps, one way or another, they're high intensity reps. That's what you're looking for as you get the season ready.
I don't have a problem with them taking joint practice seriously. By all means, practice against other team players. But my point being, again, there's a big difference. They sell tickets to preseason games. The stadiums will have people in them. And what is one thing that Miami has had struggles with, less so last season, thank God, but especially in the first year, communication on the field. They have struggled mightily with this. That is not something we can afford to have.
It really wasn't.
Not as much. Again, so I'm saying not as much last year. But again, that's because they were in the second year now. So again, but we're adding new factors. Like now we have OBJ, who, by the way, he's on the PUP list. Now we have on the defensive side of the ball, again, communication. We have to be able to know for sure that these guys know what they're doing when the bullets are live and when you have other team fans screaming in your ear and throwing things off. In practice, it's unless somebody does something amazing, it's bizarrely quiet. It's just weird how quiet everybody is.
But okay. Are you telling me that they're really gonna have to be fighting through like 150 decibels in week 2 of the preseason?
No,
that's not.
That's a warm up.
It's
a warm up.
But 3-0. One also thing,
Just pump the
one
sound
thing
in.
also to remember is now that you only have the one cut down day. So I think the preseason now, more so than the past, has become an audition for these bottom.
And you
of the
have one
roster
less
guys.
game to see those.
You have
guys
one less
too.
guys to do it.
Bottom half of the roster guys.
I don't care to see Tyreek Hill or Jalen Waddle out there. They played with Tua for 3 years now. They know what's going on. They know this stuff. Maybe somebody like Beckham doesn't. Maybe a guy like Brewer that you mentioned, Eric Smith mentioned that he needs the snaps too. Okay, I get that. But some of these guys, I mean, take I can't think of his name. He's the receiver. He was an undrafted free agent receiver this year, Burton or something. I don't remember. Anyway, let's say you're that guy, and like, okay, well, I'm losing snaps in the preseason to Odell Beckham Jr., and I need this audition because I want to make this team. This is my career. That guy's made his money. He's going to be on the team. I need to show that I need to make the team. Guy like Ezukama missed time. He's got to go out there and do it. He's done well in the preseason in years past. That, to me, that's what the preseason is for. It's for these guys to go out and say, hey, I need to make a name for myself, and this is the only chance that I'm going to get to do it. And we all saw what happened a couple of years ago with Skylar Thompson. Went out and absolutely just blew the doors off the preseason and earned a roster spot. He's still here. So I think the opportunity is there for them. Now, maybe a few guys can get a few snaps, sure. But for the most part, and I actually find that part of preseason interesting, is watching these guys who you'll probably never see again get out there and play and try to do well. It's just a fascinating thing for me to watch because it's inspirational, and I just find it interesting. So that's what I think is going to happen. They're not going to listen to me. They're going to play who they're going to play, but I would just say don't play anybody, because I would rather go into week 1 with a healthy slate of everybody that is supposed to be important than risk going out there and something crazy happen for a game that doesn't matter.
Lewis, Chris made it super sentimental for a minute there, so he won. Sorry, buddy. Chris won.
I mean, I feel like
I was like getting all emotional. Yeah, it's inspirational, man. I'm like, it is,
Hey,
bro.
look, that I think it was, I don't remember, 2-3 years ago. It was the game against Cincinnati in the preseason, and that the quarterback had like the wild 4th down touchdown throw to that tight end that didn't make nobody. None of these guys
yeah, I know what you're talking about. I don't even remember that quarterback's name.
I don't either. See, that's the thing. And
I knew who you're talking about. I remember that throw. It was like that crazy throw. Yes.
Yeah. All I remember.
It wasn't McLeod. It wasn't McLeod. Thompson, right?
That's like 10 years ago. It was he got picked up by somebody else.
Yeah, he got picked up by somebody. Then I think even at one point he was on our team again. And then I don't know.
The tight end actually got called up from the practice squad and played in the game against the Patriots that year. So it was 2020. But anyway, it's like I was jumping up and down in my living room because it was an exciting game and it was stress-free. That's the best part. It's like, oh, they lost. Who cares? They go out and lose to Jacksonville. It's going to be that post-game show is going to be something different.
That
But
hurts.
that was so exciting to watch that. And these guys are playing for their lives, and most of them don't make it, but it's fun to watch because that's what they're doing. So,
Yeah.
and the guy a couple years ago, he ended up playing for the Saints, receiver that we all lamented didn't make the team. I can't remember his name either. I have to go look all this stuff up after I get off the show.
All right, we're going to go ahead and get ready to call it here. So once again, training camp is underway. We're going to be looking forward to more reports as they come out. Hopefully OBJ gets off the PUP list really quickly, because I don't really think that we as Dolphins fans want to see him just kind of chilling there if there's nothing actually wrong with the guy. So with that being said, everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. If you haven't already done so, by the way, you need to go to OnlyFins. All you have to do is go to discord.gg/OnlyFins. It's only $3 a month to get some of the best Dolphins talk on the internet. You're definitely going to get more out of it than if you were on Twitter. And by the way, there are some things, I will say this, there are some things that we can't actually say on this show because you have to get them exclusively on OnlyFins from the guys at 3 yards per carry. There's inside information that we are not allowed to share, ladies and gentlemen. However, the guys from the 3 yards per carry podcast, at their own discretion, they'll be able to release it as they deem it fit. And you can, of course, listen to their show as well as ours on the 3 yards per carry podcast feed. So you'll be able to catch this show if you didn't catch it live on that feed. So once again, a big thank you to our sponsors, prizepicks.com. Use the promo code 5, that's FIVE, and they will match up to $100 on your deposit when you sign up. And of course, jerseys305.com. Make sure you use that promo code 5. Again, you can get 10% off your order the next time that you are looking for some vintage jerseys. Any final thoughts before we call it? Duke just raised his hand, so let's hear it.
It was Reed Sennett, and it was
Yes.
Yes, that's him.
Yes, that's right.
Kirk Merritt was the receiver that we all talked about.
Kirk Merritt, yes, I
And
remember him too.
the
We were
tight
all
end-
high on him.
The tight end was Chris Myrick.
Yes, that was
I
like
don't
a
even remember
6'8"
that.
behemoth of a
It
tight
was
end.
It was he caught one pass for 34 yards and a touchdown, and that was it on that wild fourth down. Reed Sennett was scrambling. That's the reason I love preseason.
You make me want to watch preseason, man. I've never really even cared about it, and I'm like, this guy makes me want to watch it now.
And I remember,
Oh, man.
I thought it was 2020, but it was 2021 because Joe Burrow played in that game. That was his first action since he came off the knee injury in 2020. And
You know-
he handed the ball off 3 times, and that was it.
We could skip the preseason games, and they could just air the first quarter of that preseason game against the Eagles a couple of years back.
Oh yes,
All 3 weeks, and I'd be fine. I'd be ready. Be ready for the season.
Well, I feel like we're all ready for the season at this point. So we're going to go ahead and call it here. Everybody, thank you all so much for joining us. For myself, Chris Early, Eric Weideke, Ron Caniff, we will see you all next week for another episode of Pulse of Fins Nation. Good night, everybody.